Okay, everybody, thank you for coming. And you've noticed that we're in a new venue, the first meeting at this new venue, which is one owned by the Canterbury Bankstown Council, and were kind enough to rent it to us. I hope you enjoy the meeting. But first up, we have Garry Uebergang to do a talk. So, welcome, Garry, please.
Planted it in a different angle, so I repotted it and then didn't like that, and so I lost it. So, and I'm sure I've seen Neville nodding his head, so I'm sure he agrees that he's lost in the odd tree here and there. Sorry?
Especially the comes here.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, so I think if I'm going to work pretty hard making sure that I keep the foliage in there, not, you know, I don't want a big tree, sort of too big, because as it is tonight, with these number of trees in it, I noticed when I was putting one of the trees in, I had this tree in the show at BSA the other day, and getting the trees ready to go to the show there, I broke one branch off here, and then tonight, this branch was here somewhere, and that broke off tonight, so...
Yeah, super glue.
It's a bit shriveled up already though, isn't it?
It is.
Well, that's not what I should be talking about. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done on that one. Now this one, some of you know Jan Briggs, and it's a Melaleuca claritops. Yeah, so I'm not going to sort of, I've had it for quite a few years, about 8 or 9 years, and you can see here the cuts because I've taken quite a few air layers. I've got about 5 other little plants at home. But the thing about this one, I've got a few Melaleuca claritops at home, but the ones obviously that are air laid from this have quite red tips, and you know, maybe in another month or so it may have been much more red all over. But I think what I'll do with this come the time, because it was standing more upright, and I always look at the base of a tree, you know, that's where you start off, you know, like, I mean, it might have a really good, you know, in another 6 weeks it might have really beautiful red foliage and all that sort of stuff, and that might be fantastic, but my eyes always start off down here. And it's improved it a little bit with the way it was, because there's this little bit of, it doesn't sort of have, doesn't, you know, not reverse taper, but I just would like to see some roots sort of coming out that way. Whether that'll happen by having lifted that up there or what, I don't sort of know, but so what'll I probably do? I mean, I think that'll, I quite like the way that some of these branches just go off and they've got some shape in it of their own. So I'll probably come down a bit with this here, and I don't know, probably this, I don't know about this tree, whether that trunk there will probably go or something, or that's off anyway. But it's, I said it's quite old, because I'm sure she would have had it for 20 years or so. She used to live down at Illawarra, and then she moved up to Coffs Harbour, and then I think I've lived about 10 years, and it would be, so it's probably about a 30-year-old tree. Now there was one of these trees done up at the AABC conference in Brisbane by Naoki, and they said it came from Rockhampton, but it looked much more robust than this one. It's just, I know it's not a big grower, and all the other ones that I've taken as cuttings from it have not sort of grown so quickly either. And there's great debate, you know, people like to say, you know, great debate as to, they say, oh, I fertilise it with this, and I never put this on it, never put chemical fertiliser, I only ever use sort of, what's that all new fancy stuff from, like dynamic lifter that they, bush tucker. Some people say, I've got some bush tucker on there, that's bush tucker there. And then I use Osmocote as well. Because I think sometimes, yeah, look, I started off learning about bonsai through Rick Roberts. Now, some of you will know Rick Roberts. And Rick Roberts, I learned some things from him. Rick Roberts used to reuse his soil, but he used to, if it had onion weed in it, he still reused it. So about half of his bonsai had onion weed growing in it. So anyway, yeah, the bush tucker is pretty good stuff, what I've seen of it, and it seems to really respond to that. And it's quite interesting because there's all this advertising and stuff goes on, and people say, oh, you can only use native fertiliser, Osmocote, for natives. You can't use the other one. But if you look at the makeup of them all, there's not much difference on them, you know. And then Grant Bowie says, oh, I just use the same for all of them. And then people say, oh, I don't put any of that fertiliser in my Banksias and all that sort of stuff. But Grant says that he just gets them used to it and they sort of seem to respond. Because it seems to me, if you look at all the fertilisers, they don't have much phosphorus in it. So most of them don't have that because, I mean, everybody's worried about being sued, aren't they? You know, like someone's got some $50,000 bonsai native that they had and they put some special fertiliser on it which Bunny said was okay and it dies and they sue. Or, you know, nobody wants to get caught out that way. So there are very few fertilisers that have much phosphorus in it, and the phosphorus I think is the only thing that's dangerous to the natives, because you know, if you look at that Osmocote native fertiliser, that's got quite a bit of nitrogen in it. Yeah, so you can just imagine that I've got quite a number of things, you know, about this size of home and, you know, various levels and whatever. Again, they take quite a while to get going. See, that's not even, I've had this in the pot about a year and it's not even really firm in there now, so, I mean, it could have curl growth in there too, couldn't it? Anyway, I might
Maybe nature kills right now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you wire those in, the trees?
Yeah, it's got wire in this time. But I mean, in a way, I'm a bit old school and I don't always worry about that. And look, probably with a big tree like this, if it had, you know, depends how much you were taking off it. You know, like you get sort of people come from, you know, John Marsh. John Marsh was telling me that he has so much success with his cuttings that he takes because he wires them into the pot so that they don't have any sort of movement. So I suppose that's the thing, it'll get better adjusted if it's, and have a better start in life if it's wired in and it's sort of not moving. On the other hand, I must say, because you hear all sorts of things, you know, with a black pine, and I've got a few black pines, and I always, with a black pine, wanted to get big here. So I read somewhere that if you go past, every time you go past it, you give it a good shake and you bend it and all that sort of stuff. And the more it's got to stand up to all that sort of stuff, it builds a bigger trunk. Yes, that is wired in and pretty flimsy wiring, but yeah, it'll obviously not need to be repotted in a hurry. I don't know if many people would grow this in their garden. This is another Melaleuca, and this is Melaleuca armillaris. And this is a Denise Edgerton pot. I don't know if you've seen many of Denise Edgerton's pots around. So I'm a member, like some of you I'm sure are, of the Victorian Native Bonsai Group. And I noticed on that they were going to do a forest, and they were doing it with these Melaleucas. So I thought that I would give it a go. And so I got a whole lot and put them in a couple of phone boxes and just threw them all together. And I just got some tube stock from the place I've been going to, being pretty good with that, is Cumberland State Forest, you know that. So they've got a wonderful, well, last time I was there a couple of weeks ago, they didn't seem to have as many tube stock. But anyway, so I got them from there and grew them, and they grew mad, and I just chopped them down every now and again, and I didn't put a lot of wire and all that sort of stuff on, but and then I don't know whether I had that one separately. Oh no, I've got another one. That's right. I've got another one which I've got growing in the garden, and I've simulated because people sort of say, oh yeah, we've got this tremendous Yamadori, or it's been growing in the bush, and so I'm trying to simulate that. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a few bends and whatever on it. It's quite thick, and it's got a bit of sort of muscling occurring on it too, so I don't know whether one part of it's died or not. And then that's it sort of growing as well. I'm not sure how well it is, but they're quite wispy, these things. They're quite wispy. They're quite fine, and what you can do is, and I should have done it, is you can just go through and pull it out, and you don't necessarily just have to cut it. And sort of the more you do that, the more you'll get you know, more. And these are quite aromatic. I don't know, probably not going to smell by the time you get down to the. Oh, I must say also the Kunzia. Not every night. Before I go to bed at night, I've got some Kunzia cream at home. Kunzia, and it's quite nice for healing properties and moisturising your hand and all that sort of stuff. So it's just surprising what they try and sort of do with it. Who would have ever thought they'd be making, but I'm not a scientist though, who would have ever thought they'd be making batteries out of salt? Anyway, that's what happens. So, so what I've tried to do with this one is I've got a couple of little ones at the back, you know, because it's further away so it looks smaller. So I've got 3 little ones here at the back and another smaller one there. Somehow or other I ended up with this tree. I've tried to pull that down so it was more out to the side there. It was sort of, the problem I've got here, I think, is I've got these 3 in pretty much a line there, pretty close to the front. So next year I might bring this tree back a bit or something, because those 3 trees seem to be in a line, and also I probably need to lean it forward a bit.
Excuse me, can I just ask about the shape of the canopy?
Yep.
Well, is it deliberately like sort of triangular?
I suppose, yes, I guess so. I mean, that's supposed to be the dominant one. That's supposed to be the dominant one, so it sort of slants down, sort of there. I mean, yeah, it's not quite as triangular as like this. Yeah. But that's the main tree, so that's obviously got to be the biggest. It's the thickest, I mean, that's not very far behind. So I wouldn't want that to sort of get bigger. Yeah, so it's been quite good, and I'm surprised. See, when I decided to make it up into the forest, I got it out and it was full of curl grubs because it was just growing in normal soil. So I thought I'll fix them up, so I just grew it in stones, you know, in rocks and pumice and all that, and zeolite and all that sort of stuff, because I don't think the grubs like crawling around in those rough sort of zeolite and having them scratching their back, so you don't tend to see them in there. That's why I've gone with that. And honestly, I don't water it any more than any of the other trees. I'm just surprised how hardy it is. I mean, I've never lost a branch or whatever with this one, with the watering, or you know, it's just growing in these pretty coarse mix, and I was surprised that it sort of keeps going.
So what kind of maloleuca was it, Garry?
Armillaris, Armillaris, Armillaris. Apparently it's gone wild down in Victoria, and you'll see it in the country growing a lot, because I think they thought it was pretty good for spreading its windbreaks and all that sort of stuff, but it's just got away, just like wattle gets away a little bit.
And does yours flower too?
Look, I have seen flowers on it, but with the trimming that I have to do, and honestly, some of the native flowers is pretty pathetic because they just come out for a couple of hours and then they're gone, you know, because they come out in summer and the flower doesn't last long. So it's not like a camellia or anything like that, or a rose.
Or a dahlia.
No. No. Anyway, so hopefully in another year or so I'll have the bigger tree, a single trunk by its own. The next thing I'll have a look at is the eucalypt, and I know Chris is a bit of an expert on this, so careful what I say here. Don't ask me to tell you what name it is, because there's a place up at Mona Vale Road called Harvest Seeds, and that's where I bought a few. I know that I said it'd be Cumberland, but I bought some eucalypt up there, and all I did was I just went through and saw. Sometimes you see the ones that they're just chucking out because they've been a bit neglected. And anyway, this tree and that one I got from there, harvested, and I got them perhaps because they had a bit bigger base on them, you know, where they get that choppy bit at the bottom where they shoot out from. There's a special name for it. I can't remember what it is.
It's a lignituber.
Lignituber, that's it. Yeah, so they may have had that already. Okay, so I forgot to say what was good and what was bad about that, but that's finished and I'm going to go back. But I'm going to talk about this one. What's good about this one? Well, I quite like the bark on it. And recently I've cut off quite a few lower branches, so this doesn't seem to be the sort of eucalypt that, and I don't know what the name of it is because the guy wasn't there when I bought it that day, and anyway, the girls couldn't tell me what name it was, so I haven't got a name for it. Someone was trying to tell me one day it was such and such a tree, but when I looked that tree up, it was supposed to have a shiny sort of trunk. But it looks like this is all you can have, that bark there. Well, with eucalypt, you've got to be careful with the size of the leaves. So I think they're not a bad size. Again, it's growing in coarse mix as well. I'm quite happy with the Nabari that I've got there. It may be later on that I'll probably just get rid of that branch later on, but I guess I'll keep that on for the moment because it's just helping that thicken up a bit. It's got quite long, they're big long internodes there, but then again I've got a few of these bush tucker on here, and it seems to be responding well to that. So, and what I read about what they do down in Victoria, you've got to make sure that you repot these every year, and so I'll make sure that I do that. And it's funny watching trees grow, isn't it? You know, now's a good time for them to really grow, and then they often slow down a bit in the summer. You know, when we get to January and we get those high temperatures, a lot of the trees sort of seem to stop growing then. And these are great trees for sort of keeping growing through the winter and all of that. So I think the leaf size is good. It sort of has got a bit of natural movement in it with the trunk. And we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, it's just wait and see as to what actually happens with these other branches and so on. I've got it in a different spot to where this one is. Of course, this one here, possum damage. I don't know whether you guys have problems with possums, but it's interesting to see that there are not many things that the possums don't like. And so I've got a backyard, I've got a swimming pool, not that anybody swims in the swimming pool, but I've got a fence, and of course the possums run along the fence, and then they won't go down on the ground, but if they can just reach down a little bit from the pool fence and have a bit of a bite, you know, they will sort of do that. So I haven't done many serious bends on that. That's sort of been a bit like that. Probably doesn't need to be any much higher than that. Anyway, so this is my other eucalypt. Oh no, there's another one over there. So this is I didn't look for too long, but when I looked at Oz Bonsai, it said something Corymbia citriodora. But I didn't know whether this is it's a lemon scented gum. So I didn't know whether that was a eucalypt or a Corymbia. I don't know the difference between Corymbia and. Can you do both? But we don't have to worry, Lee's not here, so. Yeah.
You could use the technical term gum tree.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
They've changed them.
And it's wonderful, you know, you go out in the garden, you brush past this, and you don't even need to, really need to touch it, and you can smell the lemon.
Yeah.
They grow with it.
Yeah, so we had one in the neighbour's backyard. And you know, like some of these guys come in and develop houses, down with this tree, down with that tree, and quite a big block. And before you knew it, all the trees were gone. Anyway, and the good thing about these ones is that they shed the bark and you get the beautiful colour underneath. And the trees that you see normally are about that colour. I just wanted to show you what I've been doing with some of our gum trees to get some really good bends in the trunks. So what I get in there and I'll get in there and bend the trees and bend them until they snap. So you can put a nice bend in there like that. But you've got wire on it, so it'll hold it, and then I'll bend it again and go over here and so and so on. And of course you think, oh, that's quite a big bend. But you know, maybe in a few days' time I'll come down and bend it even more so it comes almost back on top of it. But it's funny, it looks like it's quite a big bend there. But once that branch has grown 3 times as big, suddenly it seems like it's almost straight. So you've got to put in some pretty big bends at an early stage, otherwise you just don't get enough happening. And you can say that's what you can do with these, and as long as you've got the wire there holding it, you can get some movement. Anyway, so that's, I've got another, this is a branch that I've done at home. And I've got a photo of it. I'm not quite sure how well it will show up.
So the crushing doesn't bother the branch?
No, as long as it's protected. As long as it's protected, and then, I've got some big bends there that have sort of come through. But again, I don't know how it's all going to go long term, because I think this is probably a tree that's going to have, as Chris has said, they're going to have branches that are going to die back and drop, and maybe I'll only have a few branches in the top. I don't know how it's all going to go. I'm only growing a trunk. I've got the trunk about that big at the moment at the base, in 4 years or something. So I'll just see how it goes. The leaves on that one are much bigger, so it's not quite as desirable as some of the other ones.
Garry, you don't find that the wiring, you wire a branch and that branch will drop off?
Look, it's mainly been on the trunk that I've been doing it so far. Yeah, so it's been mainly on the trunk so far that I've been doing that. This one, I haven't done much wiring. You can see I've done a bit up here, and I haven't done that much wiring with this one. Yeah, but I remember you sort of saying that, that's for sure.
Garry, the other problematic thing with eucalypts, apart from branches falling off, is backbudding. And I know that different species backbud differently. But have you got any comments on, have you ever tried forcing backbudding?
Well, I'm not sort of been going so long with those, but I can say more with this one. This one is, it's called Plunket Mallee. It does have another name, but Eucalyptus curtisii or something or other. So this one seems to backbud quite nicely. It certainly goes back to the base there, and sort of once you shoot out from there. and it's a massive sort of shoots at the moment. You can see I've got a new shoot that's sort of come there. I hope that I'll get something here again. But what's particularly good about this one, I should have probably been a bit more woke up to, you know, just putting a little bit of movement in the trunks that came out, because it's a multi-trunk thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or something. It's one of those things, I probably would have liked the trunk in the middle to have been the thickest and the biggest, but it's turned out that that one's the biggest. But then again, I think you should just go with what you've got, you know, that's the biggest, well, let's just work with that. And I did try to do this one. So I had this one, I had a big branch right out here somewhere. And then, you know, one of those terrible windy days that we had, I noticed that it smashed off. But you'll notice there how well it's shot out around that. So I think you find that this one, a particularly good material, because the leaves aren't very big. And it's got the particular mallee style where they all shoot out in the one bulbous area. I quite like the colour of the new shoots. Doesn't have bark, but anyway, I can live with that. Doesn't seem to have bark. It doesn't have bark so much. And it's already, you know, it's got a reasonable base on it, sort of like that. And it's something you can fiddle with and wire, you know, like if I was to, you know, get out there and sort through it and wire the branches and put everything in its position, and there'd be quite a bit of work there to do. So I think it's quite good material to sort of work with. As I said, I don't know how good those other ones will be, you know, like the lemon scented gum. But this one, I think certainly very worthwhile.
How big do you want it to grow, Garry?
Oh, probably not much bigger than that. But you know, see, I've got branches fairly low down there, and they've kept. Whereas I think with some of the other trees, some of the other normal eucalypts, they've dropped them from there. I did have a river red gum. My first one that I had when I went from the harvest, I bought a river red gum, Eucalyptus camelodescens or whatever it is. And that was going great guns, and I had the base about this big, and it was up really tall, and all that sort of stuff. And then it dried out a bit one day. I used to keep it in a bit of water, because they seem to drink a lot. And then stopped growing, and I did lift it out of the pot, and maybe it had root aphids, because it had something white scale or something on the side of it. So maybe that was that, and maybe that was the problem with keeping it in a tray of water, you know. So it's a fine line between having it dry out and then having a bit of water. Because those river red gums are amazing trees. You can see them all over Australia. You can go out in the middle of Australia and in a little dry riverbed you'll see a river gum, you know, with these galahs in it and whatever, birds and whatever, and looking very healthy, but they must have their roots down a long way, and you know, and they're surviving. And you sort of think, I always thought, oh yeah, I'll grow these natives, you know, because they're hardy. You see these trees don't need much water. Well, they need more water than others, you know, they're more thirsty than your olives. You know, olives don't seem to need much water, and some of the other exotics that we do, and black pine and stuff, but the natives certainly need it. But this one here, eucalyptus, it's a plunket mallee. It's endemic, or it comes from the area outside of Brisbane, so it's up that area. So
Don't they call this flame forest? Forest flame?
the
Forest flame, yeah.
oh, you mean with the colour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
many of them out there looks like a forest.
Yep. Yes, it's nice with that new foliage, isn't it? And I've got another eucalyptus at home, quite a big one. Like the base on it's Right, again, just grown from tube stock. It's about that big now. I would have brought it tonight, but I was helping out with the BSA show with a bad back from moving all the stuff there, so I didn't want to bring that along. But it's been not, you know, it needs to be roused on a bit because it is dropping a few leaves, but its new leaves come out bright red and they're sort of quite nice. And if I had brought it tonight, it would have looked quite well here with all of this. And the leaves aren't too big, and it does have sort of quite nice red branches on them. So, this is the Grevillea. Fortunately, we've got a couple of the little flowers are still on. There's one there. So it was looking quite pretty a month ago. This is not a particular style of mine to have those roots out like that. I was just worried. I've just heard all sorts of things about some leptospermum and Grevillea that you've got to be very careful when repotting. So when I pulled it out of the pot like that, I didn't want to take too much more soil off the bottom, so that's why that's exposed there like that. This one here, this is a tree that I don't think I'm going to be seeing any rough bark on. When I go home or in the next few days, I'll give it a trim and cut it back because so it can sort of shoot out again whatever next year. It's a funny thing people say, grow natives and grow this and get the birds into your garden. But it's a pity you can't choose which birds. Because those stupid, noisy miners come and you'll have these beautiful flowers on a tree like this and they come out the next day and they're all wrecked and they've all fallen off. So I wouldn't mind if it was a little blue wrens flying around. And, anybody got blue wrens at their place?
I haven't seen it in years.
No.
That's not good habitat for blue wrens. You need them denser.
Yeah.
Everybody's got them on.
Yeah.
That's why Kansias are good for blue wrens.
Yeah. So there's a few more flowers are going to come on this. So it's got quite nice colour to make up for the fact that it's hasn't got rough bark. I'll just have to probably check here that as Neville and James would know, Andrew doesn't like, he likes to see a bit of taper. You can't have a big thick branch coming all the way out here, so you might have to cut it back there to something so that you get bigger, medium and sort of small and not have a big, really thick branch sort of right out here. So I'm going away on a trip in another week or so, so I don't know whether I'll repot it before I go or not. I had a really nice Grevillea called Lady O, Grevillea Lady O, and it was growing really well. And I decided to repot it back in about August, middle of August or something, and anyway, it didn't like that and died, so that was most unfortunate because it was a really good tree, because it just flowered all the year round. It was beautiful, the flowers. And I've got a little bit of a problem with this in that I don't know whether it's sort of coming from the farm because we used a few chemicals, to grow wheat. We used a few chemicals. Deodorant was quite commonly used. You'd have the wheat was all covered with deodorant because when you planted the wheat, ants or other little insects came along and they carried the wheat away and decided to eat it. So you had to put poison on there to stop them doing it. So anyway, we as kids, we out there helping and we'd be spreading it around in our hands and sort of stuff. And then we'd go off and have morning tea later on with no washing hands or anything. So I don't know whether all those chemicals and all that and have, but anyway, I can get irritation just from the leaf. So I get a rash and all that sort of stuff, so it better flower well if I'm sort of going to keep it. And this pot, I don't know what to think, it's one by Lynette Smith, anyway, it's quite a nice glaze that she has, but it's funny how it doesn't come all the way down, but I suppose that's just part of that. These are natives, aren't they? They're not looking very good at this time of the year, but this is something that I like fiddling with. You know, whenever we're repotting them, I've always got a few of these roots, and you put them in, and it's amazing what you can achieve. And as I said, I got that tree, I don't know, 15 years ago, and did that for a while, and then I thought, yep, it's on to the next person now, and James is looking after it. I'll just pass this one round, you can have a look if you like. I think that's the front this time. Anyway, you can work out your own front. But they're not looking so good at the moment. James is looking alright, because it's a bit early yet, you know. It's, they seem to respond, so they almost go a bit deciduous, some of them, you know. So they're not looking so good. So, why did I bring this? Well, I only brought this because I've got the big one down there. I brought this one because I planted this in a CD. You know how they do it with Trident maples, and you have a washer or something under the hole in it, or metal or whatever, you plant the tree through it, and then you get that lovely sort of base where it'll flatten out and grow over the top. I'm not going to pull it out and sort of show you or see what's happening, but that's anyway what I've done with that one. So I'm just developing that to get a lovely sort of thick base where you see, if you've been to Japan and you see sometimes when they have those Trident maples, they have the base coming out sort of like that, you know, quite sort of rounded there.
So how long ago did you put?
I did that about a year ago. And then this is something that I've worked on with, I did a bit of work on it with Andrew Edge on this one, and also with Hugh Grant. And so what we've got here, I don't want to make a mess of you all the first night, so I might leave it in there.
If you want to build it up, we can get a cover.
Okay. No, it is anything, I think. But anyway, so what I did was I got a number of trees. When they were small, there's eucalyptus, there's water gums. There are a number of water gums growing in our street. That's used in the street trees. So I collected seeds, and when I got the plants up, I decided to tie 5 or so together, and so that's what I've ended up doing here.
You want to pull that?
All right. Do one? No, not so much. They do get, some of the leaves do get eaten. Some of the leaves do get eaten. You want to hold the bottom of the pot? I'll try to tie it on somewhere. Oh, yes.
Yes.
White cover. You want white cover?
No, it's out now. So you see, and my theory is that by growing a number of trunks together, you're going to get a thicker base in a quicker time. If you just got the one trunk, well, you're only going to get so thick. But if you tie a few together, and I've been pretty savage with putting the fertiliser on, and I'm sure I had 5 or so tied together, but I think I've only ended up with 3. See a few eggshells here. Well, I just put, I find the compost, you know, from the compost bin, it works pretty well. And I'm not sure which is the
So you got the CD on this one?
Oh, no. But this is about.
Did you have tube stock originally with it?
No, I collected seeds from the street. I collected seeds from the street and planted them. And that's where I ended up with that.
So how big were they when you first started combining together?
When I first put them together, they were only about that thick, I suppose.
Did you have to do anything to the trunk material, like the caving or anything like that, or
No.
just stuck them together?
No, I've just put them down. I think it's all going together.
Sorry, Gary, when did you put them together?
Look, 4 years ago, perhaps. So you can see how, you know, you've got about, it's about that wide at the bottom.
It's really interesting, so, yeah.
And I think it's the front.
It's a lovely shape. It's sort of lovely.
Yeah, I think that's the front around that side. And see, they have quite a lovely white trunk, which is nice. And I mean, it would take a lot longer to get something really worthwhile with the black pine, but I think with the water gun, it's sort of come through sort of pretty quickly. It's hard to know how much. It's hard to know whether it's even how many trees it is.
Well, bonsai is the art of deception anyway, isn't it?
Ah, yes, yes, you're right. Yep. But it is quite nice with a nice white trunk. I think that's sort of quite nice. I'm not sure how much of the movement you can see there with everything. So I haven't tried with this to go, you know, trunk going up like this and branches like this. And I haven't tried to do that. And Hugh Grant was saying, he was looking in terms of the branch coming out and then sort of coming up like that on the ends. And not sort of, you know, it's not trying to do it like a black pine with the, you know, left branch there and a pad and all that sort of stuff. I'm not trying to do that, you know. So I think I'll be able to put this into a proper pot, not too long, but it won't be, you know, in another year or so. I'll put it in a show or something like that. So.
And you keep it that size, would you, Gary?
Yeah, I think it probably will be a tree about this size.
Okay.
And the other thing which I've seen people do is when you have the big leaves like this. So what you can do is you can cut them, and you cut them sort of like that, and it looks like it's a smaller leaf.
Have you tried to actually squeeze the leaf in the inside and cut it? It looks more natural. So the leaves like that, bend it like this and cut it.
Oh, okay.
And
All right, well, there we go.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to do that for this one.
Yeah. So bend it on the inside.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. Yeah, just bend it on the inside and cut it.
Cut it here.
Yeah, yeah.
Out. Bring it. Cut it towards the, yeah. Out that way, that's it. Wrong way? Oh, well, that's an interesting one.
So you get the idea, I'm just going to cut right up.
Towards the trunk.
There we go. Yeah, so because they're really big leaves. But the thing is, if I'm growing it and I'm not fertilising it heavily like all this sort of stuff, and I'm just not at that mature stage, the leaves aren't going to be as big anymore. But I'll have to go through and give this a bit of a haircut before I go away, because I think it's going to dry out too quickly if it's like that. But anyway, I'm not going to do too much more than that, because I was going to have a look at this back here.
Oh, did I hear you right, in that you put into garden compost?
Yeah, I put garden. This is garden compost
Yeah,
here.
so why did you just decide on garden compost rather than
Oh.
bonsai mix?
Oh no, it's just got garden compost on the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on the top. I didn't put it in that.
Fertilising reason.
Yeah, for the fertilising reasons. And you can see there it's grown pretty rapidly and fairly free of disease. I mean, that thing that lily pillies get, no, it doesn't seem to get that. I will get a few eaten leaves like that, but really sort of not too much else seems to go wrong. No go wrong with it. I've got another really big one in the garden where I've let the roots go into the ground, and it's about that big at the base now. It's about 8 different trunks or something. But the beauty about these trees is that they can be that thick, and you can really wire them and bend them. They're quite flexible. It's amazing. I meant to bring a branch from the other tree. When they're that thick, you can put the big wire on and you can really achieve big bends. So they're really good to work with from that point of view, as opposed to other trees, they'll just snap or whatever.
And that's just a water go, isn't it?
Yep. Tristaniopsis, Lorena Tristaniopsis. Yep.
What do you think about worms in the pot? Because we find compost like a lot of worms.
Yeah.
And they good or bad,
I don't know.
That's a good
Not as bad as curl grubs.
There's also they create the fungi, that they also help to assist the fungi to the roots
Yep, so this is my last one. Oh! Wasn't too good with the trousers.
Another great.
So, now you'll see this was the cover photo for, this was the cover photo for Bonsai by the Harbour last year. This tree, with the kangaroo in the background. Now, I think that's the front sort of there. My apologies for letting moss sort of go on here. When I had this tree, initially I thought, I had to cut down these roots and get rid of them, that's not good like that, but I quite like them now, the way that they have, and I know that it's not the ideal. If you're totally planting everything from scratch, you'd want them more at ground level, but I'm sort of quite happy with that. I don't mind that. If I was showing it, I would want to have that green moss under control, but it's going to be much more moss on it by the time I get back if it's being watered, at home with a watering system on it all the time. So what am I trying to do with this? My initial thing when I started off with bonsai was the old topiary effect. Just like given a haircut and have it all flat across the top and all that sort of stuff. But I'm thinking more of just looking for trees and branches that sort of, when they start to do a bit of their own thing. Like you've got a really nice movement in this branch here. It's just done its own thing. And over here, this branch movement here, it twists around and goes the other way and whatever. And that sort of just happened all on its own. Now, I was able to buy this tree on strength of some advice from Brenda. Because Brenda told us a little while about this family that had run a nursery up at Taree for a long time, and they were selling their stock. So I got this one from there, and I've been so happy with it. I had one year where I went away on a holiday and I repotted it and came home and the tree had fallen out of the pot, and the pot was still on the stand and the tree was lying on the ground. Anyway, it survived. And I did a workshop with this tree with Sam Thompson last year. Now, this trunk here was just as big as that one, and it used to be out here as well. But the idea was that we would sort of have one a bit bigger than the other rather than both trying to be the same. I think I'd like to see between here a bit of a gap. But see that there, I think I'd like to see a bit of a gap in between there because that's all sort of grown over, that's sort of grown quite well there, so I might just thin that out a bit. Can you all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Simon? Let's open it up a little bit there. Put my glasses on to see as to whether they've been broken off or what. So I'm just going to go through and just look at a few areas there if something's going up where I think it could be coming down, or something's a bit too thick, or it needs a little bit of thinning out, or something. Too many branches going in the same direction. So who's got a Beckia? Right. Now, of course, if we had Lee here, she'd be telling us it's not called Beckia. What's she called?
The new name.
Sinantha, isn't it?
Samantha.
Yeah, something. Sinantha. Sinantha.
Since when?
They've changed the classifications of a whole lot of native plants.
Yeah, I don't sort of quite know why, but
Probably on Lee's
No,
advice.
it's to do with their genetic base rather than their morphological base. That's the major reason.
But you know what I did was when I did this workshop with Sam Thompson, we put wire on it, fairly thin copper wire. And I think for every 5 branches that I wired, 3 of them broke. So I don't think I'm going to worry too much about wiring in the future because they're just so brittle.
It's a brittle plant.
You know, whereas these are beautiful to wire up, you know. But it's funny, look how that branch has been back around there like that. Probably because, I don't know, when you go and move stuff in the car and you push something in and you push it a bit further. And I've never been one of those to, never had a crash when I got on my bonsai in the car, because I remember one year we had a show at Maryland's, I think it was, put trees in there. Maryland's one year, I remember there was somebody who had to go off and buy some pots because they had to jam the brakes on and they'd smashed a few of their pots, so they had to go and get new trees. So,
That looks like it responds to clip and grow rather than wiring anyway.
yes.
The wood's very brittle on them. You wouldn't want to try to wire it.
But the benefits of having that, you have to wire it as well.
And the beautiful thing about it is they flower really well, and you don't need any special, and because I think it'd be hard to, if you have that to shape. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Jim Scott. Jim Scott was a friend of Rick's, and Jim Scott started off a lot of things. But Jim Scott was a particular bonsai artist where everything was ready to show at more or less at any time of the year. Whereas a lot of people, they're saying, right, well look, I want to develop this branch a bit more sort of there, so I'll keep that in training for another year or so, and then it'll be right to show a bit later. So everybody's got different ways of sort of doing things, and whether they're preparedness for putting on display or showing or whatever. Having said what I like about this tree, well, I like the way they get the bark on them. I love the beautiful colour, beautiful green colour, and I haven't fertilised that any more than I grow this one. I just get the cactus and succulent mix, I think it is, and then I try and get some coarse sand to mix in with it. So that's all I've been doing with that. I had a lot of that webbing last year, especially in those Melaleuca livergarden, those ones that I know, leptospermum, you know, those coastal tea trees. I was picking it off every couple of weeks when you go through and get it all. They come in this one a little bit, but it was terrible in the coastal tea tree.
Actually rebark under that web, don't they?
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Starting to
wasn't.
take away chill weight again.
Right. No, well, there was certainly something pretty nasty going on, unfortunately. Now, I know that it's not a super duper pot, but anyway.
Nice point.
I think it matches the tree nicely.
Oh, look, it's got a crack in it.
Oh, yeah.
There's another good tree that's selling.
Yep. Yeah, so I've had a few of these come up in the wooden pots. I don't know, some of you were at Bonsai by the Harbour, and there was a tree another becky that I had, and it had a lovely base on it. It was about, I think the trunk was about that thick at the bottom, and it came out and a lovely bark on it. And I can't even remember where I got it from. I think I got it from Forest Seeds Nursery. And then I just had it there somewhere growing and really ignored it and trimmed it every now and again. And then it was amazing how quickly, before I knew it, it was, you know, the right size and ready to do something with. Anybody got any questions?
How old is that tree?
Well, I think I've had this one about 8 years, but it obviously was around for a while, you know, in the nursery.
So was that another rescue tree then?
Look, it was in a pot probably not even that big, and it was really root bound and all that, because it was just one of those things. I don't know how you can run a nursery. I don't know if you've been out to Ray Neskie's recently and go out there, and there's just a lot of stuff that's got to be done. You know, all the plants that I've got there have got to be weeded, they've all got to be watered, they've got to think about new stock and everything, and some of them, and so it's just a lot of work, and you can see how it's just, it gets a bit beyond, and I'm not quite sure how you can pay somebody $70 an hour to come there and work, and how it really all works. I don't know where the nurseries are going to be in the future, you know, how that's all going to work. But then again, you know, I think there are some people out there growing a lot of trees themselves, you know.
Are the bankier's roots in your experience?
How or what?
The roots.
Look, when I repot this, I'm going away, as I said, in a week or so, and what I would normally do is cut off about half of the side, and then I would rip into the side underneath. I cut off about a half of the bottom, and put it inside and just put it back in, and that seems to be all right. Some people are saying that when you're repotting, you can't sort of cut any of the branches off, but I don't know. I'm pretty keen on putting splashing sea salt around when I repot. That's something that but it's hard to know whether that achieves anything or not. It's hard to know with all these things.
Do you sit them in water? Water trays?
No, not the Becky, I don't. I would probably, if there was one tree that I was going to sit in that water, would be the Claratops. That probably would be one that I would do. Do you do that?
Some. Like you found out all your good roots go into the tray instead of in the pot. They're just directed. You'll find all the thick root stays in the pot, and the finer one goes into the tray. So you just lose the benefit of really the finer roots.
And I found sometimes that with some trees, if you've got a tree sitting in water, the bottom bit that sits in water often doesn't have much in the line of roots there. Some trees love it, but other trees sort of, you know, I've got I've got a camellia which I've got to really watch out for in hot weather, so I keep it in dry water, and it lives and is quite happy. But the bottom bit where the roots sit in water, they sort of don't live. So that's why it's coping with that.
Yeah, I've got one of the batteries too. It sits in the water like a tray with gravelite.
Oh yeah.
And a month later, I pick it up the whole gravel and things comes with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's okay. You see, I just don't know. Yeah, I had that experience with some of that that thing I was talking about earlier. That disease that you get, root aphid. Root aphid. So I just don't know whether if it gets too wet, it's going to be sort of bad. I'll probably want to thin this out a bit on top because, as you know, everything goes sort of really thick on top, sort of thing. All the growth goes there. So has anybody got any eucalypts besides Chris?
Yeah, I have some. I find in the middle of summer eucalypts go into water trays pretty well because they get very thirsty in the middle of summer.
Hey Gary,
Yeah.
I think the boss is about to walk.
No, I'm not pushing that.
Oh, that's
No,
not.
no, I'm
I was
happy.
actually going to help monitor questions.
Oh, okay. My apologies, Mr. President.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Gary, did you spray that tree before you came to work?
This one?
Yeah, did you mist it?
No.
It's got all little tiny
Droplets of water.
droplets or sparkles on it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, in amongst the foliage. It might be just transpiration, but it looks quite spectacular underneath lights.
Oh, okay.
Is that lichen at the top?
There's got a bit of lichen up here, yeah. Yep, well I don't certainly like the lichen on a pine, but I'm not too worried about it here. I don't think.
Oh, why is that, Gary? On the plane?
Oh, well, on the bark I don't think you want. I don't think you want it on the bark.
You mean it's like moss and it will deteriorate, the bark will deteriorate?
Or even just deteriorate detract from its appearance. Who's been on the new metro?
Not yet.
I went in this morning to the one near Town Hall, and that was really something to sort of see that. Pretty impressive.
We're still waiting for the light rail in Parramatta.
I haven't been on Saturday I went to the art gallery and I got off at St James. I haven't been on the new metro, but it couldn't be any older and worse than St James station. It's very tired.
Well, how old is it? 120 years?
Oh, it's going to be at least 100.
It's a heritage station.
That's an excuse that I'm doing that.
St James Museum is like the
Did anybody go to the Penn Gym display? Did anybody go to McGurney's one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't mind having that.
On the Botanical Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing display.
Where's that at?
Botanical Garden?
Oh, yeah.
It was much better than her club display.
Yep. Well, because it had my trees in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that main tree with that Inoki cypress. That's an amazing tree.
6 people could lift it in.
Yeah.
I thought they were all virtual.
No, they're not all that trees. So
All right.
There was another major to that Alex. I don't know if it's the place what is but
Yeah, that's
sun.
that's
The great from Garden Australia was a.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's been
Yes. Anybody else see that? Garden Australia?
What, 3 weeks
Do it
ago?
on iPhone,
Something
do it
like
on
that.
iPhone. It's really good.
I mean, there's quite often bonsai events in Australia.
So if you go online, you can actually look on the website, you put in bonsai and you get a whole lot of their previous, whole database.
That's what I'm like.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
While you're doing that, Gary, I have a request rather than a question. We've got the display trees behind you that people have brought in. The theme tonight was cascade and semi-cascade.
All right.
And in a little while, I'll get people to make a comment or two about their own tree.
Okay.
I was wondering whether you could do us the honour of giving us some judgmental comments on the trees after they've all introduced their tree.
All right, I'll do my best.
Yeah, well, that's all I'm asking. And also, while you're finishing, I was very negligent at the beginning because I said I had a few announcements. There was one that I should have made at the very beginning because we have an honoured guest with us tonight. Lorraine Tedderton, who is the president of the Garden Clubs of Australia, and of which is affiliated with bonsai clubs. We get a lot of the services through Garden Clubs of Australia. And she's here with her husband. Would you mind just standing up there? George, I understand, is keen to get into bonsai, so we might have but I apologise, I should have introduced you earlier.
Perfectly fine.
It's an honour to have you here.
Thank you. It is an honour to be here.
Yeah, so don't forget, next year in June, Bonsai by the Harbour will be on again next year. And it's where BFA sort of represents a lot of clubs, but it's where we have the opportunity of getting demonstrators from interstate and whatever, and people that you haven't heard. I mean, you wouldn't want to hear me every week, but it'd be nice to sort of hear from somebody else. There are some real experts out there, so you can just make sure that you look out for that that's sort of coming up, and we'll try and make it as varied as possible. Well, John was there.
We advertise it pretty well, and there were a couple of people. Lee was there. I think you were there when you looked. I can say from my experience it was excellent. We had Marcello, who was always good to listen to, and we had Grant. Dan, I don't know whether I've got my first aid kit. Do you need a band-aid?
Oh, I think I've got a band-aid in the car.
But it really is an excellent.
Cut paste.
Don't mix it up with a rooting hormone, mate. Come on. Some things come out of your finger.
John, you mentioned.
Yeah, because things came to an end there with COVID for a while, didn't they?
Oh yes, they sure did.
You mentioned Hugh Grant, and Hugh Grant was the Young Gardener of the Year for GCA, the Garden Clubs of Australia last year, winning the award for his bonsai work. So
Right.
we were very, that award goes to someone under 30.
Okay.
Yes, but, so he was our Young Gardener of the Year.
Sorry?
He's very knowledgeable. I know that James did a workshop with Hugh, and Hugh has got great artistic ideas.
Not with the trees that I take.
What's that?
Not with the trees that I take.
Oh, I thought you did. Didn't you like what happened with that?
Well, I took the tree away, every single branch, it had 12 branches in it.
And then you cut off 6. And
It cut off 6 and never finished. It wasn't completed. I had to take it home and do it myself.
yeah, that was even going on.
No,
Yeah, with,
That's
what's that they got? He called it as a,
He's so he was ready to get coffee.
I think I've got a little bit of thickness up at the top here still. I've probably got to get out a bit more. Look, if you want to call it quits and you do your own thing, I'll just navigate things later.
Well, I for one could watch you for hours, but you know, I realise that we've all got things to do before we finish it. But while you're just finishing,
From the ladies' point of view, it's not bad.
I'm always amazed that somebody with shape ability like Garry to come along and do this sort of stuff at council, to talk about trees. Look how many trees he brought. I actually thought he might bring one or two. So I'll ask you all to join me in thanking Garry very much. Thank you. Now, Garry also was good enough to bring a plant. I can't quite tell what it is from here.
It's a coastal tea tree.
A coastal tea tree. And we're going to have a lucky door prize. We'll do it by taking the people who signed in. If you haven't signed in, you've got about 5 minutes to make sure that there are names. I've got a random number generator on my phone, and we'll randomly generate a number. And the person who is that number in the book, the coastal teacher.
No winning.
We've got just another couple of quick
Hey, Simon.
I've got apologies from David and Gracie. David is actually not very well. He's the person who found this location. After the last meeting, which is now 5 weeks ago, the committee spent a lot of effort trying to find where we were going to move to. And I checked out probably a dozen different sites. But David found it here, and I don't know how we didn't come across it earlier, but I find this premises is really excellent. It's the right amount of size, it's got parking outside. So far I haven't been able to pull it. Good lighting, wooden floors so you don't have to worry about squeaking up too much. It's one of the sites I looked at had carpet floors.
And it does have a bar though.
Not yet.
Not yet, sort that out.
So that's really good. So David deserves a great credit for finding it. We have a new member tonight, Chloe, who is actually a student. Yes, I know. But she's come along, and I hope to see you come back many times. What else do I have to say? Some people have asked whether they've actually paid their fees for the year. And most people can remember, I had trouble. There's an easy way to tell. If you look at your name card, a watermark on it tells you the financial year that you are currently. It should say 24-25. If it doesn't say 24-25, you are not a current financial member. And I don't want to embarrass you. It's also a different colour than previously. So that saves the embarrassment of having to phone up and find out. As I said, the theme of tonight's display trees is cascades and semi-cascades, and so in a few minutes we'll pause to have people just say quickly a little bit of the history of their tree before Garry does us the honour of making a judgmental comment on them. If we have any time at the end of it, we can do a workshop. This layout, for those of you who've been with the club long enough, the room that we had about 5 years ago was much like this, in that there was room to have tables for workshopping and have an area for presentation. The rooms that we've had since then haven't lent themselves to that. So what I'm hoping is that this room, with the tables set up for working as soon as we finish the presentation part of a meeting, will allow us to do more workshopping in every meeting. The next meeting will be back, as I think I said this earlier, but we'll be back to the normal second Tuesday of the month. So the next meeting is the 8th of October. we have a visit organised to the Nesky Nursery on the 27th, Sunday the 27th of October. I think I pre-announced it at the last meeting, but I didn't have an exact date. I've since spoken to Clinton, and we've organised for the 27th of October. Now, we've got the next meeting before that, so I can remind you all, but just so that you could put in your diaries. They'll provide tea and biscuits for us. And if anybody's been there, I'm sure you'll agree that it's worth going back. If you haven't been there, then it's certainly worth making the effort to get there.
I've got a lot of really good trees at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Phenomenal trees.
They've got the School of Bonsai, I think, had their show 1 or 2 weeks before the 27th of October. And that'd be good to go to as well. Nevertheless, put that in your diary, the 27th of October. The next meeting, the theme of the display trees will be flowering. And I know that some of my trees have been through and finished flowering. So whatever trees are in flower, or even ones I suppose that have had flowers, but the theme is flowering. We also, I think, pre-announced last meeting that we were thinking of having a sales night, and that will be the next meeting. So we're encouraging people to bring things along that they want to sell, and we'll have an area set up for a sales night. I think they were all the announcements that I wanted to make. Back to Garry putting the finishing touches on his finger. I'm all
Yeah, we're at seal that. Yeah, it's a little bit thick just here yet, so where were you at the front? So it's got a bit of a gap there. Oh, there we go, we've got a bit of that webbing. I know where they sing. So, but I've thinned that out of it there. It's still a little bit thick up here, so that's just about done.
the first aid kit is around.
Oh, no, it's all right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
How look at that? No, some grub. Snow.
It certainly was. Was that under the wing?
Might have been. I don't know.
That's pretty solid.
I think it was up here somewhere.
I remember I checked the eucalyptus last year, and it was in winter. I hadn't checked it for some months. And when I had a look, there was a grub that had eaten halfway around all the bark, and quite a big channel. I don't know what sort of grub it was, but it didn't last long after that.
Oh, the tree?
No, the tree's fine. It's practically mended with scarring, but it was quite a large channel.
What had destroyed my trees? That guy.
Oh, really? You mentioned possums. I live in North Sydney, and I had a plague of possums. Well, I had to build a cage for all my deciduous trees, because once the buds would come out, the possums would love to get in and eat all the new shoots. And the worst thing was, not only did they eat all the new shoots, but they would break branches as they climbed through the bonsai. So I had to build a special cage for the trees that are vulnerable. How long have you been on?
A month.
And you're relying on your automatic watering?
Oh, my neighbour is,
Why can't you?
my neighbour's, well, I've got a watering system. But there's going to be some other things. This one, water.
As you know, watering systems are good, but they can't rely on them. To find that the main hose from the timer to the sprinklers has burst.
I spent
No water.
I spent 80 bucks on the most. I was like, down the street.
Look, I think I might put it on.
What's the shit?
Well, an unofficial comment is I think it looks great.
Yep.
Once more, thank you, Garry.
Thanks, Garry.
together.
So why don't we now have
Only
people
these two are fused together.
just introduce their
This one here,
trees?
there's still a
Why don't we start from this end?
Yeah, should they?
This is the first round.
First thing, yeah, try for a while. And then scrape the side.
I was debating whether it was actually a cascade or not, because it literally is above the rim of the pot on the lower end, but the pot on the upper end is above it, so I brought it anyway. It was one of the few trees that I had that were pieces, so.
I think it passes.
You're all right.
Come down the front because we're videoing the whole thing, just so that we can picture it. Okay. Thank you for Simon. This is the next one.
That's mine. It's juniper. Basically, it just does what it wants to do. Very occasionally I'll give it a trim. It needs another trim now. I'm not quite convinced whether that's the front, or if you want to see the trunk, that's the front. I quite like foliage, so I turn it around the other way. This is the dark side. You know, the sun comes this side, and it doesn't get that side, so they don't get much growth on that side. But yeah, it needs like all my trees, needs another trim to get it back. But it's a hardy little thing. It doesn't. Just grows.
How long have you grown that one, Chris?
Huh?
How long have you grown
Oh, I suppose I've had that at least 10 years.
You haven't pruned it in 10 years?
But I've pruned it about 3 times in 10 years.
Yeah, okay. This is the next one. I'm just moving so I can see the tree. Yeah. That, it's a 11 centimetre tea tree. I purchased it at the Central Coast Bonsai Show about 5 years ago. It's had a couple of workshops with Andrew Edge, and I just kept tipping it over more and more until that's where it is. I had the pot design for it, and that's all I can say.
The stand's pretty spectacular.
Thank you. Reverse garbage.
Okay, right.
Reverse garbage, very good. That's a good one. Yeah, this is the next one. Oh, Chris has just added that his stand is a bonsai stand manufacturer called IKEA.
There's my tree. It's a Fajoa, you know. Yeah, it's my only cascade one. Yeah. Actually, I got an Amaryllis in the car, but I didn't want to bring. I butchered all the leaves off, so you can wire them down the cascade as well. Same as those ones.
Thanks, Ty. Now I know the next one is Phillips, and it's not quite cascading, but that doesn't matter.
I don't have a cascade, but
Tip the pot over, Phillips.
no, it's a crepe myrtle. Got it going there earlier this year. I was really worried because it had no leaves, but it's now got leaves. Thank you.
Well, it's a deciduous tree, you know.
I know, but you know, I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's looking very healthy, so the repotting
Crepe
works.
myrtle. Yep.
Yeah, it's like
And the next one?
came on.
This is a black pine I bought last year. I'm sorry about the pot. The pot upsets me. And the idea is to get it to continue to go down, but I don't know what I'm doing with black pines. So
Join the club there, brother.
Thanks, Alex. James.
Like we said, it's not a cascade, it's a really fig. The reason I bought this tree is because I know Garry was doing the talk. We went, me and Neville was buying his persimmon. And that guy had that tree in there, and I said, I really like that tree. Behold, I bought it. A couple of years later, I displayed it at the Illawarra Club. And Garry came out, he goes, who's that tree there? I go, it's mine. He goes, do you know that's my tree?
Oh, really?
I goes, how did it get your tree? He sold it at Oz Bonsai. Did you sell it at Oz Bonsai?
Yeah, I think, or might have sold, yeah, probably. Yeah,
He sold it at, someone bought it at Oz Bonsai and sold it, it was at Ray Nesky, and the guy bought it from Ray Nesky. So it did the whole loop, end up with me. Yeah.
So you're hoping to sell it back to Garry?
This tree, this is mine as well. It's a Aretha Regard. Where's Ollie? Regina. Aretha Regina. Yeah, lilac. So it starts with white, purple flowers, turns white, and then turns to red berries. 2018, when Jen Briggs was selling her collections, me and Neville went to Port Macquarie. We bought a few trees from her, and this tree actually was just a stump with a few leaves on it. And she goes, do you want it? It's dying. You might actually save it. It was just a couple of leaves in the front. From 2018, well, actually he's doing really well. I've glued one of the branch in here, and I put a wood hardener on it so it doesn't rot. It does rot quite easily. And we found, by then we were walking around, we found this pot, just a normal garden pot, in the street. So I took the angle grinder on it, and just cascaded it, and just gave it a bit of more space. Yeah, made it a bit more interesting.
Is the branch you glued back on ginned? I can't tell from here.
Which branch?
The one you said you glued back on.
This one, just a rot in the middle. I glued it back on and put some wood hardener on it.
Right.
So it doesn't rot further on. Yeah, it's a nice tree on it. The problem with when they turn to berries, they disappear in one day.
Right.
Possum takes them straight away. I don't get to enjoy the berries, so I migrated a few of the possums. I rang up the council because I was inside the roof too. So they came in, they collected them, and because my neighbour's got a huge lily, it's the best accommodation they can get, especially in today's housing problems.
Apparently you're allowed to take possums 100 yards away.
They come back.
Put it in the cage with the berries.
Further than 100 yards.
Look, I had possum problem, which is fair enough, but now that I said I've got magpie problem. They kill all the bugs on my tree. So some of my trees have got really, like I've got a claritop, like tall trees. I came in one day, all the bark, it's peeled off.
Oh, no, they're looking for grubs underneath.
And then stood there looking at them, they doing it. So now most of my trees got a Coca-Cola cans on around it. All covered with it, I swear.
They're taking the insects off.
Well, they killed the tree at the same time. They debarked it.
No, it's different things.
What? Debarking it?
I think I've told this.
There's only one thing you can do is build a house all around the block.
Yes. And we had a barbecue in his backyard, and it had an oak tree, which would have been 20 metres high, 20 metres wide, stoned in. And I said, what killed your tree? And he said, possums. And it took 2 years, but every time I got new shoots, the possums would eat it. After 2 years, this huge tree was stoned in.
I inherited this tree from Sue Brown when she was a daughter gave it to us. Yeah, we found it. Beautiful Japanese maple. Big trunk, big. They killed the top of it.
Yeah.
We're going to learn to live with nature.
Well, thank you. This is the last tree.
I was sitting in the seat there looking at it, it looks quite weird. This up and this whoop. But I brought it in because it's all coming out. This is the time of year to just go berserk. So in another couple of weeks this will look like a different tree. This is my means of stopping the tree falling out the pot. I'm not a heavy wire innerer. So now it's probably okay, but it fell out several times and that's how I stop it falling out.
Very clever.
But if you're going to do it, don't get a pot with sides on it like that. Get a pot with sides on it like that. And obviously you'd put the tree at the back of the pot to cantilever. This one I don't want to repot it just yet, so I'll put it in a different pot. But I often actually use a brick to hold them in place. Once the roots are set, you take the brick off. But that's the wrong shaped pot for that tree.
Thanks, Chris, and thank everybody. As usual, I'm always amazed and pleased with the quality of the trees that come along. So thank you. We have talked, we've talked a lot about, rather than just having presentations, doing critiques. Within the club, it's a bit difficult because it's we all know each other so well. But it's very valuable to have objective critiques of the trees. You know, it might be embarrassing a bit, but it's very useful to have somebody who knows bonsais to make comment. And so I know this is putting you on the spot, Garry, but we welcome your comments on these trees.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. Sorry, I was a bit parched earlier, Simon, and I didn't get to hear what you were saying about your tree.
Azalea, red and white flower. Shinkyo.
This one?
Satsuki, yeah.
Azalea.
It's a Satsuki from Melbourne, from their various collections of like 100 colours.
Oh, okay.
It's a Shinkyo, I believe it's white and red. I took cuttings, but I don't know which ones it is.
So which callistomen is this one? Does it have a name?
Looks like Captain Cook.
Because Neville used to have the king of the callistomens, didn't he? With that one with the big band on it.
Yeah.
So where did it go to?
It's still there.
Oh, you still got it?
I've still got that one, yeah, the cascade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look, it says I'm, you know, just like you guys, you know, I don't necessarily know all the rules and all that sort of stuff. And it's a bit hard to know, you know, what sort of a pot. It's an unusual presentation, I think, to have that style of pot to have a cascade and like that. But, I guess you can do it however you like. But the appeal of this tree is the base on it and everything. It's, I don't know whether the bark has sort of come off there, but it's amazing how that sort of lives there. Hasn't flowered yet? When does it normally flower?
It hasn't flowered. This is, to be honest, it's about the first time I really started fertilizing it, and it's really taken off this year.
Right.
Other years, you know, I'll get one or two flowers on it, but not, you know, not a big flush. Yeah. And this is basically, it's just taken off in the last, probably 2-3 weeks. And the white on there was, I had a bird nest fern that had started to grow and kind of rotted out the bark in that area.
Look, it'd be nice if it was presented on a higher stand, you know, like Neville's, and then you could see it sort of leaning out, and you could see it have a better display. It is a bit leggy, but you know, it's a funny thing, isn't it? You don't want to cut off any flowers that are going to come. But it's very nice material, that one. And you've got a very nice pot here, Simon.
Thank you.
I suppose you could say it's a bit over potted, but I'd love to, when are the flowers coming? Or they're being?
Soon, probably within the month.
And it's probably better out the other way, Chris, but yeah, I don't have these trees. I refuse to have them because I cut myself with scissors before. I just know if I was working on this for very long, my fingers would be red raw because they're just so tough on them. Maybe that's why it's not wide and trimmed so much. I don't know. But yeah, to do with a bit of trim, I think we'd all agree. I mean, the difference between this and this, I mean, that's very well presented, you know, it's had work on it, and lovely with styling and everything, and every branch is in its place and moved here and there away from one another, very nicely presented. Who made the pot?
Helen Montfort.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I do like the tree. Is it Petersonian, is it?
I know, it was just told to me it's 11th going to teach you.
Oh, very nice. I do like that. Like the way it's presented. So was it standing up when you got it?
Yeah, I can show you further.
Alright. And so you leaned it over Now we move on to the next one. That's only recently been potted, has it?
Yeah, repotted it last couple of days.
Yeah, you've got the makings of something there. Have you wired it much?
No, yeah, last year I wired it.
Right.
I had the wires scars healing for the last year.
Right.
And I root pruned it this repot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's nicely placed in the pot there and everything, and the way it's leaning out there.
I was going to wire it again today, but this meeting's dragging out a bit.
Of course, Brenda won't allow you to display anything that's got wire on it.
No.
Yes, I had one of these. I've got a big crepe marble at home, which I got from the farm at home near Toowoomba, because when we sold up, I just took a cutting of it because it was my mother's favourite sort of tree, and so it's got a big one. But this is a much better one. So they grow pretty well, don't they? When are you going to trim it?
I get home.
Yeah. Not tonight, surely.
No. Tomorrow probably. Yeah. It needs
Anyway.
ratification, but it's Janet Selby's pot.
The black pine, yeah, so hopefully you'll have that for many, many years, and you'll get it all barked up and everything, and really turn it into something. But you'll have to sort of work out what you want to do, and whether you want it to be a cascade or what you want it to do. I've got a few black pines, but it's not quite as easy as it seems to be. You can see how they say that's the one at the top of the tree that you've sort of got to work on, and how you keep all the needles sort of nice and green, how you keep them not too long, and no sooner, it's just ongoing, you no sooner cut the needles and the next one grows, and then you've got to cut them and join them, pull them off, and whatever. It's just an ongoing sort of thing, and there's a lot of mystique around black pines. And then you've got to go through here and sort out, 2 shoots, one branch coming out, 2 shoots, not 3 or 4, and all that sort of stuff. You need to go through and do that. So you have 1 branch coming out, and that goes to 2. Because if you have 4 maybe shoots there, that'll get really quite thick. And anyway. Yes, I know the guy that I got this from. He gave me the cutting, and they really do flare out in the base, the willow leaf fig. And that's a good example of it all. And they really do sort of thicken up, and it's all the branches coming out, and it's hard to necessarily just have reverse taper all the way, because when you have a lot of branches there, it makes it get thick. But it's in good shape.
Fits in the pot.
What's that?
It barely fits in the pot.
Yes, that'd be right. But it's funny, isn't it, how they do survive with all that? So is it in full sun or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't repot it like every 4 years or something.
Right.
Still sit in the same pot.
Mm.
Yeah, loves it.
I do love this tree. I think that's amazing. I suppose it's always it's not a tree that you know. What sort of a tree did you say it was?
Ether regad, something like that. With Ollie back up. Rigida, yeah. Aretha rigida, something cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just love the way that it's got a big base on it. You can see the roots there. It's got good nabari, and it's got interesting stuff here. What's happening here in the middle, whatever but the history of it was there. I like that branch cascading down there. I love the flowers that you got on it. They're just looking very healthy. And amazing what you did hacking that pot.
Only
It's
had
a
one or
real
two
talking
French
point.
on it, yeah.
A real talking point. I'm not sure how long you're going to let this go, Chris. When I come out here next year, it'll be up again.
You'll need a bigger rock then.
You need a stick out here to hold it up. Yeah. They take a long time to get bark on them, the deodar cedars. So you've got to be around for a long time. You got something funny happening there. Perhaps you could put something on it there and hack into it and make a bit of a shari or something to make it a bit more interesting. Now's the time we could get some heavy wire on it and put some real bends in it and make something interesting in it, because you've got to make it interesting for people to look at.
Yep.
Anyway, well done to you all for that. I hope that's given you some ideas, and I hope I haven't been too critical and too harsh.
Thanks, Garry. As I said, it's always difficult to objectively criticise our own trees, so it's really good to have some. 2 meetings ago we had Clinton do the same thing. That was good too. Okay, that's sort of the end of the formal part of the meeting, and we're getting towards 9 o'clock. Not much time to do workshops, so probably the only other formal thing to do is to decide who wins the door prize. Now, I counted, there are 29 people in the book. I haven't allowed for anybody who signed in twice. I was going to...
5 times.
5 times. I was going to ask our guest of honour to generate the random number. If you press generate, it will come up with a number between 1 and 29. Just touch.
480.
Oh, 14.
My birthday. 14.
Now I've got to see who was 14. Alex, you win the door prize. We've just discovered a good way to make sure people sign in. Okay, thanks for coming. I hope you agree with me that this is a great venue. I look forward to many really good meetings. Okay, please mingle what you want to do, and look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's very heavy, isn't it? Yeah. But the roots obviously don't go all the way down, they probably only go half. You need a stand like that. Probably about.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah, it's true. They're not mossy, they're green. That's enough to even catch and grow stuff. Yeah, that's true. So you can see that.
But like as I said, it only had 2 branches when I had it.
That's another big
Yeah. So there's this branch here, it's glued.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's glued from it. So it was coming off. So I glued it and put a wood hardener on
It's
it.
happening to me.
You put it in one of the plates.
Sorry?
It was in the plastic pot for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
And then I transferred it to a different pot. The pot was sitting on it before, water from this pot, but it had only 3 legs. So when it's windy, it's always...
Yeah, that's right.
I love this.
Yeah.
Now, when you're looking at
Where